Good morning, everybody. I got one of my glass iced coffee things here. I'm gonna make those Pioneer Woman hand pies today, I think. And I'll show you how it's done. It's gonna be a hot day, but these only really bake for, I think it was 20 minutes or something like that, because they're made out of the Rhodes Texas rolls, and I'll show you all that. If you're new here, welcome to my channel. If you're not new here, welcome back. It is summer here. It's been warm, so there's that. The deer saga continues. They were out there this morning, but they were eating huck salal, and that's berries and leaves that we don't care about much. We got a lot of them here because of the woods. Okay, I always like this part because it's so pretty. I use oat milk and Stoke. And I'm always putting too much oat milk, so I like the plain unsweetened Stoke, and I'll do zero sugar second and barista edition first, but I couldn't find barista edition of the oat milk. Oh, barista edition of Oatly. This is Califia. I always try to call it California. Okay, gotta figure out how to get the straw in this thing now. Here comes more. All right, I have 20 down. There were 24 in this bag. I didn't want to crowd them any more than I already did because I want them to rise to their full potential. So I'll just put these last 4 in the freezer, and I'll add them to another little bag, or I'll just use 4 the next time I make a dinner or something. So what I have to do now is put a piece of plastic wrap sprayed with Pam. So the only plastic wrap that I have is press and seal, and that will stick to the rolls because that's what it's made to do. So what I do is I put the sticky side up. So I'm going to spray the not sticky side and put it down against the bread, if that makes any sense at all. Then I'll just put them in the oven so there's no breezes. The oven's not on, but they'll, be safe in there from anything. It's hard to see, but they're in there. I probably didn't, because I just took a still picture. I put down parchment paper on the baking dish, not because they'll stick badly when they're rising, but I need them to come up when they're all the way risen like I want them. I need them to come up without stretching, because then they'll be more deflated, I guess you'd say. They're just not in good shape when I pull on them. So I'm going to roll them out anyway, one at a time, but that's why I just didn't tell you I took a picture. So I got this out of the freezer. It's just 1 pound of cooked ground beef with no seasoning, and it was frozen on 7/9/23. I think I must have gotten a big, like I did the other day, I got a big container of 3-pounder of ground beef, and I didn't want to just put it in whole, and I thought it'd be easy to have some already cooked. I could add it to chili, spaghetti, whatever. Well, today it's going into these meat pies. Now, along with this ground beef, there are some other ingredients, and I'll tell you about those. All right, now let me introduce you to the recipe and what I'm going to use to make it. You already saw the rolls. They're in the oven, not on, just rising. So rather than show you the whole recipe, because I don't think I'm supposed to do that, I'm going to tell you that it's the recipe courtesy of Ree Drummond, show The Pioneer Woman, episode just other cuts of beef, and it's called Meat Pies. So I have almost everything called for in the recipe. A couple things I substitute because I don't have it, and it's real forgiving that way. So you could use any kind of meat, any kind of peppers, any seasonings you like, any cheese you like, but I'm following the cheese and the meat as she has it. Okay, so you're going to need, ignore this, you're going to need red pepper, chipotle, chili powder, this is cumin, ground black pepper, and she specifically says sea salt. Now, I don't have any fresh garlic. I'm using garlic powder. I add onion powder just because I like it, and so it's already going to have onion in it. She calls for poblano. I couldn't get it from the grocery store. She calls for actually a couple, and I got 4. Because poblano are bigger, I use 4 little ones, and they're jalapeno. Calls for a chopped onion, and here's an onion. It calls for, how much? I don't know how much, but I just got this out of the garden. I am able to grow some herbs, so I've got parsley, rosemary, and basil growing, and so I took some parsley. So I'll chop that up and use it. And then it calls for tomato paste. I like it in the tube when I have it. I don't like to open a can because I hardly ever use a whole can, and I put it in the freezer and I find it months later icicled. So I already said the ground beef. This is already cooked. It's such a good thing to have it already cooked up with no seasoning, and then you can just make it into whatever you want. It calls for a couple of eggs. Now the eggs are for, not is for. The eggs are for egg wash and for making the dough stick together when you fold it over to make the hand pie. I use the Wondra sprinkle flour. I don't use a lot, but I sprinkle that across my work surface so that the bread, the rolls, don't stick until I want them to with the egg wash. And it calls for pepper jack cheese. I don't grate my cheese like the recipe calls for. I use just a slice. So I'll cut off hunks and put them in there into the hand pies, and when they bake, they melt, same as they would if they were grated, if it was grated. So, and that's it. It's really easy. Anybody could do this, and they're going to go faster than, if you make these, they're going to go faster than you can believe, because the guys here will eat probably 5 each, and it makes 20. So it's a good thing. They enjoy it. And I'll serve it with something else too. Okay, I've washed the parsley, picked off all of the stems and washed it. I've washed the jalapeno peppers, and now I'm going to chop up this onion. I've got 1 yellow onion chopped, 4 jalapeno peppers, pretty small, and this is supposed to be around a half a cup, I think. I don't know. It's chopped parsley. So I'm going to cook in a pan over here at the stove the onion and the pepper, just until they're, they mingle and translucent and start to release the oils and that kind of thing. And rather than oil, I use butter, just because, butter. Now I'll add the jalapeno peppers and the onions. And I'll get the rest out of this bowl with a spoon. They're all in there. Let there be light. I turned on the stove light too. Not the stove. What do you call that light up there by the vent? The overhead light. That's what we'll call it. We're just going to cook these. I don't know how long it'll take, but I told you, I think just until it's nice and cooked together and translucent onions. I actually learned this on YouTube watching you all. Let me clarify. Putting the spoon here on the end with the hole. There you go. These are nice and toasty and softened, and so it says to add the red pepper flakes. I didn't read how much. That many is how I say. And then, I don't have fresh garlic, as I said, so I'm putting some garlic powder. Not a lot, just like about that much. My husband isn't a garlic fan, like a lot. He likes a little. So there's a little. And cook it 1 more minute. And then you take it out of the pan, transfer it to a bowl, and just set it aside. And that's just the onions, the peppers, onion powder, garlic powder, and red pepper flakes. This is what was in the gallon Ziploc baggie from my freezer. It's a little over a pound of ground beef with 0 seasonings. I didn't salt it, I didn't pepper it, nothing. So now it's ready to be dressed for this particular recipe. It was solid rock frozen. I dumped it out of the bag. I put it in this pan. I put a lid over it, put it on low, walked away. When I came back, it was done. Ta-da! What a time saver. Really, get some ground beef done with no flavoring so you can just add it to stuff. It's instant pot savings like that. Things that get done quickly when you're in a hurry. Now I'm going to put in chili powder. Well, I don't have chili powder. I have chipotle chili ground, so that's what I'm putting in. And I don't know why I don't have chili powder. I always have it. We're just out for some reason. And I'm also putting in ground cumin and salt. And that's it for this into the meat for now. I'm using fine sea salt just because the recipe asked for it. And I had it, so why not? I may as well do one thing right in the recipe. All right, first thing going in is cumin, and we like cumin here a lot. So there's, you know, a good amount. I don't know how much it called for. And it's already so warm, I'm just going to do a little bit of this, not a whole lot. And the sea salt goes a long way, I think, too. So there, that's probably too much right there, but that's what it is. And then I'll cook this up together and get it all nice and mingled and come back. I have it on low because it's basically all cooked. I just wanted to get the flavors to release their oils into the meat. That part's done. Now I need to add 3 tablespoons of tomato paste. I use the squeeze kind. What brand is this? Cento organic tomato paste. This whatever they had. And I eyeballed it. 3 tablespoons-ish. And I also eyeballed. Oh, look. I've had these for so many years and they're done for. Anyway, it's my little rainbow thing over here. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, a 1/4 cup of water-ish into the meat with 3 tablespoons of tomato paste. So there's that, and there was some left in here, so I went ahead and just stirred it around in there to try to get it all out. And I did. Put this in now and get it cooked together. Full disclosure, I just added a little more because I didn't think it looked like it was going to be enough to actually flavor the meat. There. Now I add the cooked vegetables to the meat with the tomato paste and the, you know, whatever else I already put in. You know what, I was telling my husband the other day that I wish that if I'd known what I know now, I would have called my channel, what was I saying? Yeah, that's what I would have called it. I'm going to mix these veggies in now. Okay, I just filmed. No clue if I filmed or I just took a long picture again. But anyway, here's the meat. Looks great. It's got the veggies and everything in it. I'm going to get it nice and cool and set it aside with, you know, everything else. And I'll add, when it's nice and cool, I'll add the parsley. And next thing is going to be the rolls. It takes 3 to 4 hours for the rolls to rise enough. And then I'll put down some paper, some parchment paper or something, probably my Silpat. And then I'll roll it into circles and put the filling in and fold it over. And so that's coming next. All right, this is completely cooled down now, the meat mixture, and I'm going to add the chopped parsley-ish. Some chopped smaller than others. And just mix it in so it'll look fresh when you bite into it, I guess, is why they want you to do it when it's cooled. I'll get this stirred up and start with my rolls, which are ready. I'm slicing up the pepper jack cheese that I use for this. This particular brand is great value this time. And so slices like this, and then I'll probably cut it one more time across like this, and then lay it maybe 2 or 3 on each roll. All right, I've cut it into little matchsticks. And so I think I already said this particular recipe that I printed, you know, from Pioneer Woman, it has the directions to shred your pepper jack cheese and to mix it with the meat when the meat is cool. I don't do that because, well, here's the biggest reason I don't do it that way. A lot of times I'll have meat mixture left over. I'll just stick it in the freezer and use it again later, the next time I have some extra dough or whatever. It would be fine to freeze it with the cheese, yes. But this way you get, I think, more cheese for your bang, you know, more bite in each particular biscuit, because I use the whole 8 ounces. And if I don't use all of this cheese, I'll just put it in a container and my guys will come by and eat it, you know, just as snacks. So that's my thought on that. Got my eggs cracked. I'm going to whip these up with a fork, and then I'm going to get out my rolls a couple at a time. I've got to get my pan ready so that I can lay them on the pan right away. And again, I line my pans most of the time with parchment rather than spraying them. I think I called them biscuits several times just now. These are the rolls, Rhodes frozen bread dough rolls, and they have arisen. All right. So, this isn't exactly a circle, but it's going to do. It's what I like. It's what I did, and I'm not going to do it different. So there. Little filling in there. some cheesy wheezy, and then we fold her up. It's supposed to look like a moon, you know, a half moon. Now, what you want to do is take your fork and put a little bit of egg wash around the edges here so that it stays shut during cooking, and that cheese, when it melts, doesn't ooze out. And it's still made, but it's just as good. I'm going around this and crimping down with a fork and a little bit of egg wash underneath. Sometimes when you do that, your fork will start to stick, so I just take my fork and I do this on this flour, and then it helps it not to stick. Then I'm just going to take, oh, I didn't use parchment. I use non-stick foil. I don't care. I know some people are really anti-foil. I'm not anti-foil. I'm not anti-much. Anyway, do you know why we use foil? The real reason we use foil is because in World War II, there was a glut. When the World War ended, there was a glut of leftover aluminum, and they didn't know what to do with it. And they said, well, let's find out what we can do with this. And they figured out they could use it in cooking. And so, you know, off the topic, whether it's safe to use, not safe to use, a waste, whatever. Before that, housewives, who did the majority of cooking back then, would take their potatoes when they wanted to roast them, and they would cover them with a little bit of like some leftover schmaltz, is that what they call it? Schmaltz, fat from chicken or whatever. And they would rub it all over and just put it on a pan, poke holes in it, and then it would roast beautifully. Well, the Reynolds Wrap Foil Company won the bid on all of this excess aluminum and flattened it out and said to the housewives, look how you can do this so much cleaner, so much better, and you can also do this and that and the other. So that's how we came to use foil. And that's the end of my story on that. So here we are, there are 13 on this tray. I had a problem. When I put my rolls in the oven to rise, I left the oven light on. The oven light on made the rolls almost start to cook. When I opened the oven, I noticed it was probably 115, 120 in there. It was warm. So these aren't as good as they're going to be if you make them and you do it right and you rise them like you should. And some of mine are coming undone, so we might have a little bit of steepage and leakage, but I'm going to show you the ugly ones anyway. 400 degree oven, 12 minutes. Also, don't rise them on parchment paper. I thought, well, it works for cookies. Why wouldn't it work for raw dough? The raw dough stuck to my parchment paper, of all things. I've never had that happen before. Isn't that weird? So I'm going to throw that away because, well, I mean, it's empty mostly. And I'm going to clean up this mess so I can have a clean place to show you when they're done. Well, I have some salt here I just ordered. It's Cypress White Flake. Sea salt. It's just pretty flakes. It's all smoke and mirrors, nothing to see here. These are the ugliest. Don't judge Ree Drummond's recipe by me. I just went south on how I raised my youngins, my rolls. They didn't rise correctly because of the oven light, I'm sure of it. They were almost cooking in there. So they're going to taste fine. They're just not as pretty as they normally are. Normally what I like to do is brush them with some egg white, and that makes them have a shiny coating, you know. But anyway, here they are, and so I'm going to taste one and show you what's in the middle. So here it is. It's tasty. You know, it's got a little heat from the cheese. It's got the meat flavor. It's got some jalapeno heat. It's just good stuff. It really is. And it's a hot pie. So there you have it. If you stuck around this long, I hope you consider subscribing. Hope you subscribe even if you didn't stick around this long. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see y'all tomorrow.